Eric, let me tell you what happened. I've only read 2 wrestling books in my whole life before the quarantine. One was one of Chris Jericho's books, I don't know which one, and the Eddie Guerrero one. So like during the quarantine, I'm a voracious reader, and I like to read about an array of subjects. I found all these wrestling books that I had that I'd never read. And one of them was this one. Okay. What a handsome lad. And yes, always. And so when did you write this? What do you remember how long ago it was?
I think it was published in 2006 or 7. So I think we wrote it probably starting in the spring of 2005, somewhere in there.
Okay. So I was just reading the book, and there were some things that I personally didn't know about. And so I wanted to invite you on the show because I wanted to ask you some of these questions. Maybe you've answered them before, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners maybe don't know, because if I don't know and I work there, maybe they don't. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to bring up that was very telling, you brought up a great point, which has actually been exacerbated. Basically what it was is that, the heels didn't want to be heels anymore. And it's hard to be a heel when you're doing cool shit, and you brought Triple H up as an example with the spitting the water and all that if people consciously or subconsciously wanted to be or liked you, how are you supposed to get heat? And the thing is that nowadays it's exacerbated to the point where both sides, they're not just trying to get cheers, they're trying to get chants. Okay? And it's gotten worse. And this is something that you know what I'm saying, that you brought up in 2005.
What's interesting, Konnan, is that just this past weekend I did an interview over in the UK, and it's just now kind of hitting social media and YouTube and things like that. And we talked about that very thing in great detail. I agree with you 1,000%. There's just no heels. And if you don't have a viable, meaningful heel, guess what else you don't have? A viable, meaningful babyface. You have characters that are in this state of neutral where they're almost interchangeable. 1 month you can, Konnan, this month you be the heel and I'll be the babyface. And then, 2 months later I'll be the babyface and you be the heel. And our characters really don't change really all that much between them. And Triple H, I know it sounds like I'm, banging on Triple H. I wish I was only a fraction of as successful as he is in this business. And he's done a lot of things right. But as an example, if you go back and you watch Triple H entrances when he was a babyface, that were grand, super hero type, cinematic, over the top, great entrances.
How are you supposed to hate that?
Well, and that's when he was a babyface. But when he came out as a heel, guess what? Nothing changed.
Same thing. Yeah.
So now you spent all this time and money, making me, love this character. But because he's playing a babyface now, you expect me to change the way I feel about him. And by the way, you could interchange Triple H with just about anybody you want. But you don't want to change anything about that character other than maybe he plays a chicken shit heel or he sells a little bit different or whatever. But those are superficial. Those are not real character changes. So, yeah, I agree with you 1,000%.
Let me ask a quick question real quick. When you were growing up, were you a fan of the heels or the baby faces?
Both. I'm a fan of the antagonist in the movie and a protagonist in the movie. I'm a fan of the characters in the story, and even as a kid, I couldn't delineate characters and story the way I do now, but I love them both because they created emotion in me. They made me feel something. They made me anticipate something. So I was smart enough, I guess, even as a snot-nosed kid, to know you can't have a good guy without a bad guy.
When I grew up,
and let me just say real quick, I'm sorry, because I'll forget, and I wanted to say this before. And the thing is that it's such a tried, and tested formula, and so easy to do. One guy that you really like, and one guy you really want to get his ass kicked, and it's almost like we've lost that. You know what I'm saying?
What were you going to say, Disco?
Bro, would you agree that the Roddy Piper heel is to me that's the prototype heel character? Because when he was a heel, he was just he was different. He was just completely obnoxious, and just like like Bobby Heenan class. It's just everything he said was just obnoxious and just you can't stand the guy and stuff. And it's like I try to be that way when I'm a heel. I just be obnoxious and just to be off-putting and stuff like that. And it's weird. Like today, like people don't want to go there, and it's kind of weird. It's like go ahead.
And that's, following up on Konnan's statement before yours just now, and I think we're discussing kind of the same, different angles of the same basic problem.
Right.
Nobody does want to be a heel anymore. It goes against every strand of DNA you were born with, and it's an instinct that you fight from the day you draw your first breath. Nobody wants people to hate them. They really don't. It goes against your instincts, right? And I think once you decide you're going to become a performer, whether it's a bad guy in a movie or a TV series or a bad guy in wrestling, it doesn't matter. You've got to learn how to embrace that character and make it your own. And I think what we have today are people who, for a variety of reasons, A, I don't think they're trained, right? B, I don't think there's any time for people really to develop their characters the way they need to. They're developed for them in a factory. And then you show up to work and you put the character on and you do your best. You do the best you can, kind of like a Disney on Ice characters. And once you're done, in your costume and the character that they give you and the scripts that they give you, then you go home and you rinse and repeat. You don't develop the instinct and the desire to make people really, really hate you. Konnan, you know what it feels like. I used to just get freaking giddy when I knew that they really, really wanted to see me get my ass kicked. But I don't think that, I don't think you don't have the commitment by the talent anymore to really embrace it. And there's some exceptions, MJF. There are some exceptions. But for the most part, people don't know how to do it.
Right.
And,
you're absolutely correct. And it hurts the business. It hurts the art. It hurts everything.
It's just boring. It's just boring, and I know, Konnan, you're probably way more relevant than I am at this point, even though you're out of the ring now for quite some time too. But, you've always been a guy that's had your finger on the pulse, much more so than a lot of people have, including myself, by the way. But people like you and I that start talking about story, and Disco, I'm including you in this as well. When we start talking about story and characters and what's missing today, I'll speak for myself. I'm not saying I don't love the super athletic stuff that we're seeing. I love it just as much as the next person. I just think that we put such an emphasis on the athleticism and the over-the-top, death-defying, knock on wood, things that we see that we've de-emphasized any necessity for story. It's just action for the sake of action. It's like going to a freaking movie and seeing a 1 hour and 28-minute car chase. I don't care who won. Right. I don't care who caught who.
Right.
And I got this shit blowing up in 5 minutes. Come on.
Right, because at the end of the day, what we're doing here, Eric, as we all know, is we're manipulating and we're eliciting emotion. It's not the same watching a basketball game than two rivals in Game 7. There's a storyline behind it. You know what I'm saying? Bro, that's what I love, stories. That's what I try to do in AAA, stories. Get people involved because they remember the emotional aspect of it. Everything else is just what gets you to there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's human nature. It's part of our DNA. There's a book written by a guy by the name of Joseph Campbell. Konnan, I really suggest you read this book. The title of the book is "A Hero Has 1,000 Faces," or something very close to that. Joseph Campbell was a really, really famous writer. In fact, his analysis of storytelling and the history of storytelling that dates back to when they were telling stories about the last hunt on the inside of a cave wall with charcoal. The elements of stories have been kind of true to our human nature from the beginning of time. And you're right, in one sense, it is so easy because, we talk in general terms, those of us who are in the business, about psychology. Well, psychology can mean different things to different people in different situations. But the psychology of telling a story hasn't changed in forever. I really encourage you to read that book, Konnan. I know you'll love it, and I bet you'll find elements of it that you can use.
All right. Did you want to ask him that question before I ask him the next one, Disco, the one about the playoffs?
Oh, yeah, here's what I want to talk about.
Very, very good theory here.
It was this is entertaining. This may take a minute to explain this, but just you'll get. So when the Last Dance came out, when WCW, we were back in the picture, and it was funny because Bro, did you when I put that tweet up? The first thing I did when I looked at wow, we had Rodman that week. I was like, I'd forgotten, that he missed a playoff, missed practice and everything. So I went and Googled, 1998 NBA playoffs, and I had no clue. And because here we are in 2020, we're not going back every year looking. Still to this day, it's the highest rated finals in the history of the NBA finals. Did you know to this day that it was that NBA finals has stood the test of time, and that when we were doing it, that it was as popular as it was? Did you realize that back then, and see now how popular it was back then?
I mean, we all knew it was a big damn deal, right? It's the Chicago. Come on, right. I mean, everybody knew it was a big deal. I don't think I really fully comprehended how big a deal it was because I wasn't a basketball fan. I was towards the end of the season and certainly during playoffs and the championship games. That's like a peripheral fan, right? But I didn't follow the NBA or read about it or listen to the radio, talk about it much. So it didn't have the impact on me it probably should have. And certainly, now 20 some odd years later, whatever it's been, still kind of a big damn deal.
How cool was that for you to see that?
Yeah, it was cool. It's always, it's always nice to have a piece of your work come up and have people go, "Whoa, I forgot all about that. That was cool."
Well, just a piece of work because, bro, you know how everybody people you get criticism over the years, and then we go back to revisionist history. It's like, wait a second, you can't criticize for this. This is a brilliant move. But what I want to talk to you about is I went back when I saw that. I did a deep dive back on that era back then, and we were beating Raw. For the 83 weeks and just nonstop, and it turned around. Did you recall this when the NBA playoffs started? And we had two shows during those NBA playoffs where I forget if we were preempting, had to be on at 6:00 at night or so, whatever it was. And Raw just destroyed us in the rate. We'd been beating them, and they killed us in the ratings those nights because we were either on a different night or something or anything, and it kind of opened put their foot in the door. Do you remember how that happened and how it affected us, and was that an impetus for you to go to do the thing with Rodman to try to because bro, people don't remember back then the Monday Night Wars were just, we were so hot it was ridiculous. You look at the crowds on both shows, sold out, rabid crowds and stuff, everything, and it was a ratings war. So did that, if the fact that WWE had taken us back over in the ratings, did you creatively? Did you start thinking, okay, well, what can we do to get this stuff back, or was it just, hey, Rodman can be on the show this week?
It was neither.
Remember what the mindset was?
It was really neither of those. Look, because we were a Turner-owned property, and because the NBA, Turner had the NBA rights, NBA finals, NBA playoff games are going to, if there's a conflict with the Nitro show or any other, program in the Turner schedule, NBA playoffs are going to get, first priority. So it came with the territory. I don't really think that had anything to do with it. The WWE, WWF at the time had made up their mind. They were going to alternately and drastically change their presentation and their formula, and they did it very effectively. I don't think stutter stepping in the schedule, because of the NBA playoffs really had anything to do with it. It certainly didn't have anything to do with how I used Dennis Rodman, because that was a spontaneous, that was Dennis's idea. I didn't ask him to show up. I would have never asked him to show up. He just heard it was going on, and his agent called me and said, "Hey, Dennis is coming to TV tonight." And I said, "Great, we'll make sure it works." Yeah,
that month of June '98. If you go back and I went back, I did a dive on that. Is that we were still, NWO still super hot. So we have Rodman, we have Page and Malone. Building up to the Hogan, the paper. We're building up that month of the pay-per-view. Raw, on the other hand, their show is really busy. They got Brawl for All. They had The Rock coming out of his shell. They had Austin with Kane and Undertaker. They're going to set Undertaker on, set Kane on fire and stuff. And they built up to. The week before our pay-per-view, Nick gets thrown off the cage at Hell in a Cell. All this is in that period of the NBA finals and everything. All this stuff is happening. How competitive it was, to the point that they gave away. They had Austin got beat by Kane the night of Hell in a Cell. That next night they do a world title match on TV while we're doing it at the last segment. You got Karl Malone in the ring one-on-one with Hulk Hogan. If you're flipping the channels back then, there's so much stuff going on. And then to the point, this is so hot, bro. Like a couple weeks later, we put Goldberg against Hogan in the Georgia Dome. And like that, like 6 weeks of television, it's funny. People will go back and kind of criticize the things that happened during that time. Like, and I want to say, like, everything we did on those TV shows, you can't criticize it all, because we gave the fans that generated like that 6 weeks of TV was just unbelievable. And like, I forget. Like, it's difficult for me because you do 83 weeks, and it's like, you can go back and remember things, but I forget. Right? But I'm just saying, it's like, it's easier when somebody asks you specific questions. I just look at general terms. And when I went back and looked, I was like, wow, that 6 weeks, you could do a deep dive on that and talk about like how that period of television from the best era of television that's ever been put on TV. And I just give credit to how the effort that we put in to give the fans on Monday nights great television. And I just see it today, and it's like, God, what happened?
Everything's different.
Yeah.
TV's different. I don't. People ask me all the time. Do you think we'll ever see another, Monday Night War era kind of level of excitement and enthusiasm? And I don't think we will. And it's not because the talent isn't there, and it's not because Tony Khan's not smart enough, or there's people at WWE that aren't smart enough. It's none of that. Television has changed. It's just if you wanted to try to recreate that today, just for example, trying to get a current NBA player. Forget about the fact that they're not playing right now, but let's assume the season was still in play. You couldn't get an NBA player to get involved in a wrestling match, not because they don't want to, but because contractually they're not able to, because of some of the stuff that Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman and others did. Now, if you play professional sports for an organized league, they come to your house to make sure your mattress isn't more than 2 feet off the floor, because they don't want you getting hurt rolling out of bed.
Right.
Just everything has changed.
You know what I thought was really cool, Eric? Now that Disco brought up those 6 weeks, this is when, to me, one of the coolest moments in WCW. And I was like, bro, we have something super special here, because I was right there watching it when it happened. I thought it was genius and just fucking brought the company to another level the day that Nash powerbombed you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was fucking intense.
That was badass.
You wanted that, and you knew it, and you gave it to them.
And Konnan, thanks, Konnan. But you know what was so cool about it for me is, when I talk about story and characters and things like that, and I hear myself talk, or I hear an interview back, I go, God damn, I wish I would have known then what I know now. Yeah. So much of what I feel and say now is a result of all the great stuff, all the horrible stuff, all the in-between stuff that you kind of learn along the way. But the one thing that I learned, right before that power bomb, I knew it before, I knew it going in, and it just cemented my firm belief that if you're going to be a heel, you really, really have to learn how to love being a heel. And it forces you to change the way you think. I used to come home from events because my kids were really young. They're still in junior high school, and my daughter younger than that. And it's like I was getting shit thrown at me and yelled at, blah, 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 blah. And of course, my little daughter, she shows up at school and everybody knows she's Eric Bischoff's daughter. And she came home from school one day. She goes, Dad, doesn't it hurt your feelings that so many people are mad at you? I said, Montana, does it hurt your feelings that we're going to Disney World next month? Come on, it's so Daddy pays the bills. It's good. And once I started, reminding myself, they don't know me. They don't know Eric Bischoff. They think they do because, people write about it and think they know. And
this is what happens. And you do your job, because this has happened to me, and it's happened to Disco too. You do your job so well that people can't differentiate between the persona and the person.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But very few guys are willing to do that.
Yes.
Talent.
Because you know what's coming with it, right? Yeah. You got to embrace it. You either embrace it or you don't do it. Right.
Here's another complicating factor, all right, underlying factor. If you're in WWE and you're the top heel,
right,
and you're in WWE and I'm the top babyface, guess who's making more money?
Yeah.
Because so much of the revenue incentives, in WWE are based off, sharing different pots of revenue. Well, babyface, merchandise sells a hell of a lot more than heel merchandise. So even if I get a great spot, I'm being that heel. Always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, but I got to be a babyface sooner or later. So
Right.
I'm going to keep doing. I'm going to keep doing this shit till they turn me.
And always the best heels are the best baby faces, anyways.
But this too, it happens in the podcast business. That the bigger audience is the echo chamber, and when you're not in the echo chamber, you're outside the box, and you're outside the echo chamber, and you're talking about how you're critical of things in the echo chamber. It's like you're kind of like, like I said, it's like you're kind of like you're risking that baby face money by not like just going along with the herd and stuff. And we see it in this too. It's like I think it's fascinating that like the dirt sheet guys sometimes have bigger audiences than the guys that have been in the business. Because they just feed them what they want. They give them and it's BS. And I'm like, we're sitting back here. It's like we say things that you may not like, or we say things about the business today that you may not agree with because from a critical standpoint, it's not like it used to be when we did it. And it's like you're kind of vilified for it sometimes. And, and it's funny how you'd rather just discuss these things with people instead of just like them, then like assuming, you're just a bad guy. You're a hater. That's what we get. Like, you're a hater. And I'm like, I just point out facts,
Part 2 of Konnan and Disco's discussion with Eric Bischoff will air on next week's show. But if you want to see the full video version right now, you can check it out on the Patreon site at patreon.com/Konnan and Konnan.me.